Ashtavakra Gita, explained in plain and easy language. Who was Ashtavakra? Long before kingdoms rose and vanished, long before the sound of modern words filled the air, there lived a sage whose wisdom cut through illusion like light through mist. His name was Ashtavakra, meaning one bent in 8 places. According to ancient tradition, Ashtavakra was born with a body twisted in 8 parts, yet with a mind perfectly straight and clear. His very form symbolized a great truth, that spiritual perfection has nothing to do with outward appearance. Though the world saw deformity, within him lived a clarity that could see reality as it was, beyond all surface, beyond all names and forms. The story of his birth, Ashtavakra's story, begins even before he was born. His father, the sage Kahoda, was once reciting verses from the Vedas, but made a small error in pronunciation. From his mother's womb, the unborn child corrected him. Insulted by the interruption, the father cursed the child to be born crooked in 8 places. Thus, Ashtavakra entered the world with a bent body. But with a soul already awakened, the story is not to be read as literal but symbolic. It reminds us that truth is not about physical beauty or perfection. Even the body may be imperfect, yet the consciousness within can be utterly pure. The young sage and the court of Janaka. As a young boy, Ashtavakra once entered the royal court of King Janaka, known as the philosopher king of Mithila, a seeker of truth himself. When the courtiers saw the boy's misshapen body, they laughed. Ashtavakra smiled gently and said, "You laugh at my body, O king's men, but not one among you sees myself. You judge by appearance, and thus you remain ignorant." The court fell silent. Even Janaka, known for his wisdom, was humbled by the boy's fearlessness and insight. It was in that very court that their legendary dialogue began. A dialogue that later came to be known as the Ashtavakra Gita, the teacher of pure awareness. Unlike most scriptures filled with ritual, discipline, or moral instruction, the Ashtavakra Gita speaks in the language of direct realization. Ashtavakra's teaching is radical in its simplicity. You are not the body nor the mind. You are pure consciousness, boundless, silent, and free. Nothing needs to be attained, because nothing was ever lost. He did not speak of gods, heavens, or paths of devotion. He spoke of the truth that is always present, the truth that reveals itself when the mind becomes still. In his words, liberation is not a future goal. It is the understanding, here and now, that the self was never bound. The legacy of Ashtavakra through the ages, sages and seekers have turned to the Ashtavakra Gita as one of the purest expressions of Advaita, the philosophy of non-duality. It stands alongside the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, but speaks with a voice even more silent and inward. It is not a manual for living, it is a mirror for awakening. Reading it does not give you something new. It reminds you of what you have always been. Ashtavakra's life itself is the message. Truth does not need perfection. It only needs perception. His crooked form became a symbol of straight vision. The vision that sees the world as illusion and the self as eternal, the timeless relevance today, thousands of years later. Ashtavakra's message remains as alive as ever. In a world of endless comparison, noise, and striving, he whispers the same eternal truth: you are not what changes. You are the awareness in which all change appears. Be still and know that you are free. Read Ashtavakra is to sit silently beside him, to listen not with the mind, but with the soul. For his words do not teach, they awaken. Introduction. The song of freedom. There are moments in life when everything feels heavy, when achievements seem hollow, relationships become confusing, and even our thoughts turn into noise. In those moments, we ask silently, who am I? Why am I here? It is from this very question that the wisdom of the Ashtavakra Gita begins. Thousands of years ago, in the kingdom of Mithila, a great king named Janaka ruled with power and grace. He was not just a ruler of people, but also a seeker of truth. Despite his wealth and wisdom, Janaka felt a quiet restlessness within, a longing to know what lies beyond success, beyond sorrow, beyond the ever-changing waves of life. One day, a young sage named Ashtavakra entered his court. His body was bent in 8 places, yet his mind was as straight as truth itself. People laughed at his form, but when he spoke, silence filled the hall. His words were simple, yet they pierced like light through darkness. The dialogue between King Janaka and sage Ashtavakra became one of the purest conversations ever recorded, a song of freedom beyond religion, beyond philosophy, beyond the noise of the world. This dialogue is called the Ashtavakra Gita, not a Gita of war and duty like the Bhagavad Gita, but a Gita of silence, peace, and self-realization. What is the Ashtavakra Gita? The Ashtavakra Gita is a short scripture, only about 20 chapters, yet within its verses lies the distilled essence of all spiritual truth. It does not speak of gods, rituals, or duties. It speaks only of the self, that pure awareness which you already are, which is never born and never dies. Ashtavakra tells Janaka, you are not the body nor the mind. You are the vast sky of awareness in which all things appear and disappear. Realize this and you are free. Is no religion in these words, no promise of heaven or threat of hell. There is only truth, spoken like a mirror showing you your own reflection. Why this book? Many translations of the Ashtavakra Gita exist, but they often use language that feels distant or difficult. The goal of this book is simple: to bring this ancient wisdom into plain, everyday English, so that anyone, young or old, spiritual or not, can understand and live by it. You don't need to be a monk or philosopher to walk this path. You can be a teacher, an artist, a student, a parent, a businessperson. The truth remains the same. Ashtavakra's message is not for renouncing life. It is for living life lightly, with awareness and peace. This is not a book to be read once and kept aside. It is a mirror to look into again and again until the reflection becomes clear. What this book offers: each chapter in this book explores one key teaching of the Ashtavakra Gita in simple words: the nature of your true self, the illusion of the world, the cause of suffering, the peace of detachment, the freedom of awareness. Along with these teachings, each chapter offers modern reflections, how this ancient wisdom can help you in daily life, in relationships, in decision-making, in moments of anxiety or confusion. You will see that the wisdom of Ashtavakra is not about escaping the world. It is about seeing it clearly and smiling. A living teaching. The Ashtavakra Gita is not meant to be believed, it is meant to be experienced. When you hear its words deeply, something shifts within, a quiet knowing arises, saying, yes, this is what I've always known but forgotten. This is the power of true knowledge. It doesn't add anything new, it helps you remember who you already are. Ashtavakra's wisdom is like the river that flows quietly beneath the noise of the world. It does not argue, it does not convince, it simply invites you to rest. To stop running, stop searching, and just be. An invitation to stillness before you begin this journey. Take a moment to pause. Let the mind settle, like dust falling to the ground after a storm. Feel your breath. Know that there is nothing to prove, nothing to achieve, nothing to fix. You are already that which you seek. May this book be a gentle companion. A reminder that freedom is not in the future, but quietly waiting within you, here and now. The self is pure awareness. It neither comes nor goes. It is everywhere, always free, silent, and shining. Ashtavakra Chapter 1. The seeker and the sage. The morning sun was soft over Mithila. Golden light fell upon the palace gardens where silence was rare. But today, even the birds seemed quieter, as if waiting for something sacred to unfold. King Janaka sat in his royal hall, surrounded by scholars, ministers, and wise men. He had everything a man could desire: power, respect, knowledge, and wealth. And yet a strange emptiness followed him like a shadow. At night, when the lamps were out and the sounds of the court faded, he would lie awake and wonder. I rule a kingdom, but do I rule myself? I can control others, but who controls my thoughts? That is the beginning of true seeking, when success loses its sweetness, and the soul begins to thirst for something real. The arrival of the young sage one day, a young sage entered the court. His name was Ashtavakra, meaning the one bent in 8 places. His body was twisted and crooked. Yet his presence carried peace that no beauty could surpass. When he walked into the hall, some courtiers laughed at his appearance. But Janaka, who had seen many faces and many fools, looked beyond the form. He felt something still, something vast, behind those calm eyes. Ashtavakra bowed slightly and said, "O king, I hear you seek the knowledge that ends sorrow." Janaka nodded, humbled. "Yes, master," he said softly. "I have studied scriptures, listened to saints, performed rituals, yet peace does not stay. Teach me that which is eternal." Smiled. It was not a smile of pride, but of compassion, as one who sees a traveler finally asking for the right direction. "The first lesson, you are not what you think," Ashtavakra said gently. "O king, if you wish to be free, know the truth. You are not the body, you are not the mind. You are pure consciousness, the witness of all that appears and disappears." Janaka was silent. These words were simple, yet they struck deep. "Not the body, not the mind. Then who am I?" Ashtavakra continued. "The body changes from child to youth to old age. The mind changes from joy to sadness, from desire to fear. But something in you never changes. That which knows all change, that which watches the play of mind and matter, that is you." Janaka closed his eyes and listened. For the first time, he was not thinking. He was seeing within, the mirror of awareness. Ashtavakra said, "Imagine a mirror. Many faces appear in it, some beautiful, some ugly. Yet the mirror itself is untouched. You are that mirror. The faces are your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. They come and go, but you remain pure, clear, and still." Janaka whispered, "But I feel pain, I feel joy, how can I be untouched?" The sage replied, "The feeling belongs to the body and mind, not to you. You are the space in which pain and joy appear, like clouds drifting in the sky. When you forget the sky and cling to the clouds, you suffer. When you remember the sky, you are free." Janaka sat motionless. The hall seemed to dissolve into silence. Something subtle within him began to shift, the beginning of awakening. The ego and the illusion. Ashtavakra looked at the king with great kindness. "O Janaka, you have lived as a king of men. Now live as the king of your own self. The ego, this sense of I am this or I am that, is the only thief in your kingdom. It steals your peace and replaces it with endless desires." Janaka asked, "How do I recognize this thief?" The sage answered, "The ego is that which always wants something, praise, power, pleasure, or even spiritual achievement. When you say, 'I am unhappy,' the ego speaks. When you watch unhappiness without owning it, the self shines." Janaka reflected, "For so long I have guarded my throne, but not my mind." The path of stillness. Ashtavakra continued. "Freedom is not in action, nor in inaction. It is in understanding. You do not become free by leaving your duties, nor by running into the forest. Freedom comes when you see that the world is only a passing show, and you are the silent witness of it." Janaka asked, "Then what must I do, O wise one?" Ashtavakra replied softly, "Do nothing. Just see clearly. Let go of the false idea that you are the doer. Actions will happen like wind moving through trees, but you will remain still inside." Moment of insight. A deep peace entered Janaka's heart. The world did not disappear, but its weight did. He looked around the hall, the same ministers, the same walls, the same throne, but everything seemed lighter, like a dream he had suddenly woken from. He said slowly, "O sage, I now see that I am not the body, not the mind. I am the awareness in which both rise and fall. I am the sky, vast, open, and free." Smiled. "That is enough, my king. You have tasted truth. From this day, rule your kingdom, but know it is all within you. Live in the world, but remain as the witness." Reflection. The dialogue between Ashtavakra and Janaka is not merely a conversation of words. It is a reflection of our own inner dialogue, the restless seeker and the quiet sage that live within us. When we stop asking the world to fulfill us, we begin to hear the voice of wisdom already inside. It whispers, "You are not what you think, you are what sees the thought." Freedom begins there, verse to remember you are pure awareness beyond body and mind. The world is a passing shadow. Rest in your true nature and be free. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 1, closing thought. Every seeker is Janaka. Every heart holds the same longing for peace. And within every one of us lives an Ashtavakra, the quiet voice of truth, waiting patiently to be heard. When you stop searching outside, you will find him within. He has been there all along, smiling, silent, unchanging. Chapter 2, the nature of the self. The court was quiet. The air itself seemed to listen. After a long silence, Janaka spoke softly, "O wise one, your words have lifted a veil from my heart. Yet a question remains, what truly is this self you speak of? If I am not this body nor this mind, then what am I?" Ashtavakra looked at the king with eyes full of compassion. He said, "You are pure awareness. You are that by which everything is known. Without you, there is no experience, no world, no thought, no dream. You are the seer of all, untouched by what you see." Janaka bowed his head. "But I live in this body, I feel pain and joy through it. How can I say I am not it?" Ashtavakra smiled. "O king, the body belongs to nature just as the river belongs to the earth. It moves, it changes, it ages, and one day it returns to dust. You are the witness of all these changes. You are the one who says, 'This is my body.' If it were truly you, you could not watch it change." Witness within the sage continued. "When you were a child, you said, 'I am a child.' When you grew older, you said, 'I am a man.' Now you say, 'I am Aging.' Tell me, O king, what is common in all these statements?" Janaka thought for a moment and replied, "The I remains constant," nodded gently. "Yes, the I that witnesses the child, the youth, and the old man is the same. That unchanging awareness is the self. It is like the thread through which beads of many colors are strung. The forms change, but the essence holds them all together." Janaka sat silent. The truth felt simple, almost too simple, and yet it carried immense peace. "The ocean and the wave," Ashtavakra continued. "The self and the world are not two. They are like the ocean and the wave. The wave rises, dances, and disappears, but it has never been anything other than water. So too, all names and forms, including your own body and thoughts, rise and fall in the vast ocean of awareness. When you say, 'I am the wave,' you suffer, for you fear its end. When you know, 'I am the ocean,' you rest in peace, for the ocean is never born and it never dies." Janaka closed his eyes and let the image settle in his heart. He could feel his breath rising and falling, just like waves on the sea of silence within. For the first time, he felt himself not as a person, but as presence. Beyond the mind, the king opened his eyes. "O sage, the body I can see, but what of the mind? It feels so close, so real, how can I be separate from it?" Ashtavakra replied. "The mind is a collection of thoughts. Each thought appears and disappears, like ripples in the water. The moment you notice a thought, you are already beyond it. If you were the mind, you could not observe it. But you can watch your mind, its desires, its memories, its doubts come and go. Therefore you are not the mind, you are the one who knows the mind." Janaka listened deeply. He remembered how his mind had ruled him, craving praise, fearing failure, chasing pleasure, avoiding pain. Now he began to see the mind was not master, only a movement in awareness. The space of awareness. Ashtavakra raised his hand and pointed toward the sky. "O king, look at the space above us. Clouds pass through it, some white and soft, some dark and heavy. The space does not cling to them nor resist them. It remains clear, open, and untouched. Yourself is that space. Thoughts, emotions, and sensations are clouds. They pass, but you remain." Janaka whispered, "I understand. I am the sky, not the clouds." Sage smiled, "Then be the sky always. Do not chase clouds, do not fight them, let them come and go. You are forever free." Taste of silence. For a long time, there was no sound in the hall. The silence itself became the teacher. Janaka sat still, his eyes half closed. He was not thinking, he was simply aware. The awareness had no edge, no center, no beginning, no end. It was soft, infinite, and peaceful, not something to be achieved, but something that had always been there, waiting to be noticed. After some time, Janaka said quietly, "O sage, this silence, is this the self?" Ashtavakra replied, "Yes, my king. The silence that knows itself. It is not the silence of absence, but of presence. The stillness in which all things rise and fall. Living as the self." Janaka asked, "If I am the self, then how should I live in this world of duties, relations, and desires?" Ashtavakra said, "Live as the witness. Perform your duties as they come, but do not let them bind your heart. Be in the world as one who plays a role in a drama, aware that it is a play, yet performing with sincerity." Added, "The wise do not run from the world, they simply see through it. They act, but know they are not the actor. They rest, but know they are not the sleeper. They live, but know they are eternal." Reflection. The conversation ended, but something eternal had begun. Janaka no longer saw himself as a man who had to become something. He began to see himself as what he had always been: pure awareness, silent and infinite. When he returned to his palace that night, the lamps glowed as usual, the servants moved as before, the world appeared unchanged. But within him there was no more confusion. He had found the center that never moves. Verse to remember: the self is pure awareness, silent, boundless, and eternal. The body and mind are shadows passing before it. Know yourself as this awareness and rest in peace. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 2, closing thought. The self cannot be found through effort, because effort belongs to the mind. It reveals itself when you become still enough to notice that you are the one who sees, feels, and knows, and that this seeing has never changed. It was there when you were a child. It is here now as you read these words. It will remain when all else passes. That is your true nature. That is peace. Chapter 3, Detachment and Stillness. When King Janaka met sage Ashtavakra again, his face was quieter than before. The restless glow in his eyes had softened into a calm curiosity. He said, "O wise one, I see now that I am not this body or mind. I have glimpsed the peace of the self, but the world still pulls at me, my family, my duties, my thoughts. How can I live in peace when life itself keeps changing?" Ashtavakra smiled, a smile born not of amusement, but of deep understanding. He said, "O king, you need not escape the world. You only need to see it rightly. Freedom is not in running away. Freedom is in not clinging." Nature of attachment. The sage continued. When you hold on to things, people, memories, achievements, you bind yourself. The moment you say, "This is mine," suffering begins. The truth is, nothing in this world is truly yours. Everything that comes will go, everything that begins will end. But you, the awareness watching all this, never change. When you remember this, detachment blossoms naturally. Janaka asked, "Does detachment mean not to love?" Ashtavakra replied, "No, my king, true detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. It means to love without possession, to act without expectation, to give without pride. It is not the absence of emotion, it is freedom from being enslaved by emotion." Rope and the snake. The sage told a simple story. In twilight, a man saw a snake on the path and jumped back in fear. When he brought light, he saw it was only a rope. The snake was never there, only the illusion frightened him. So it is with the world. We take what we see and imagine it to be solid, permanent, real. We fear losing it, we crave to keep it. But once you bring the light of awareness, you see, it was only a play of perception. The rope was always a rope, you were always free. Janaka sat still, the image clear in his mind. He realized most of life's pain comes from mistaking the rope for the snake. The peace of letting go. Ashtavakra said softly, "O king, let go of the idea that the world must please you. Let go of the belief that others must understand you. Let go of the notion that you must always win, then see how peace quietly enters your heart, not as an achievement, but as your own nature returning home. Janaka listened in silence. He had spent years holding on to his crown, his honor, his identity. Now he began to see that letting go was not loss. It was freedom. He said, "Master, I have ruled people with justice and wisdom, but I have never ruled my own desires. They rise and fall like waves. How can I still them?" The still lake, the sage, looked toward the palace gardens, where a pond lay calm in the afternoon sun. He said, "Look at that water. When the wind blows, ripples appear. When the wind stops, the water reflects the sky perfectly. Your mind is that water. Desires are the wind. When the wind of wanting stops, not by force, but by understanding, the mind becomes still, and the self shines like the sun on a clear lake." Janaka watched the pond for a long time. The reflection of the trees moved slightly, then rested. He felt the meaning without effort. The middle path. Janaka asked, "Shall I then withdraw from my duties, O sage, to remain in stillness?" Ashtavakra replied, "No, my king, do not run to the forest and do not drown in the palace. Be free within both. Detachment does not mean doing nothing. It means doing what must be done without being bound by it. The wise man lives in the world as the lotus lives in water. Touched by it, yet never wet." The words sank deep into Janaka's heart. He saw that the world was not the problem, his attachment to it was. The quiet mind. The sage continued, "When the mind is still, wisdom arises naturally. You do not need to fight thoughts, simply watch them. They are like birds flying across the sky. They do not stain it. Remain as the sky. Let thoughts come and go. When you do not identify with them, they lose their power." Janaka closed his eyes. The hall faded into silence again. He watched thoughts appear, a worry about the kingdom, a memory of his youth, a flicker of pride, and each one passed, leaving no trace. He realized peace is not something you earn. It is what remains when you stop clinging. Reflection. The king bowed and said, "O master, I begin to see. The world is like a shadow. It follows, but it cannot bind. The more I try to hold it, the more it slips away." Nodded, "Yes, my king, stop chasing shadows. Turn toward the light within, and the shadows will take care of themselves." That evening, when Janaka walked through his gardens, the same flowers bloomed, the same wind blew, yet something had changed. He no longer looked at them as possessions or decorations. He looked at them as passing forms in the play of existence, beautiful, transient, free. And in that seeing, his heart became still, verse to remember, detached from all that comes and goes. Be still as the unmoving self. In stillness, the world dissolves into peace. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 3, closing thought. Detachment is not the rejection of life. It is the discovery of your true center within it. Stillness is not absence. It is awareness untouched by movement. When you cease to chase what changes, you find what never does. And in that quiet knowing, life becomes light. Not because it has changed, but because you have awakened. Chapter 4, the illusion of the world. The next morning, the palace awoke to the sound of conch shells and rustling silk. But within the inner chamber, silence reigned. King Janaka sat before sage Ashtavakra, his crown set aside, his heart open. He said, "O sage, I feel lighter than ever before. Detachment has brought peace. Yet one thought still troubles me. This world that I see, hear, and touch every day, is it real or not? If all is passing, if I am only the witness, then what is this world made of?" Ashtavakra's eyes softened. He looked at the king as a teacher looks upon a student ready for the highest truth. He said quietly, "O king, what you see as the world is only a reflection, a play of appearances in your own awareness. It is like a dream, vivid, beautiful, sometimes painful, but unreal once you wake." Dream analogy. Ashtavakra asked, "O king, have you ever dreamed?" Janaka smiled. "Yes, many times. Sometimes I am a warrior, sometimes a wanderer, sometimes a child again." Sage asked, "And when you wake, where do those people and places go?" Janaka replied, "They vanish, yet while dreaming they felt so real." Said, "Just so. The waking world is also a kind of dream, longer and more consistent, but still within the mind's field of awareness. When you wake from this too, when you awaken to the self, you will see that what you called reality was only a play upon the screen of consciousness. Janaka was silent. His mind tried to grasp the meaning, but a deeper part of him simply knew. The mirage in the desert, the sage continued. A thirsty traveler walks through the desert and sees water shimmering in the distance. He runs toward it, but finds only sand. The water was never there, yet the illusion appeared because of heat and light. In the same way, the world appears because of the heat of desire and the light of awareness. Awareness itself is real, but the forms that dance within it are only mirages. Janaka frowned slightly. If the world is illusion, why should I act in it at all? Why should I rule my people or care for my family? Ashtavakra smiled gently. You are free to act, my king, but act with the understanding that it is all a divine play, Leela. The wise do not withdraw from life, they simply stop being fooled by it. Rope and Snake revisited. The sage paused and said, Earlier I told you of the rope mistaken for a snake. The illusion did not harm the rope, it only frightened the mind. When light came, fear vanished. So too, this world is harmless when seen clearly. Suffering arises not from the world itself, but from ignorance, from mistaking shadow for substance. Janaka listened deeply. He felt as though his vision of life was slowly being washed clean, seeing through the play. Ashtavakra said, O king, understand this well, the world is neither real nor unreal. It is apparent. Like a reflection in a mirror, it appears, but has no substance of its own. The reflection depends on the mirror, but the mirror depends on nothing. You are that mirror. The world is your reflection. The wise see the reflection, yet never forget the mirror. Janaka looked into a polished bronze plate beside him. His own face stared back. He touched the image, but his fingers met only cool metal. He understood. The play of consciousness. The sage continued. All forms, all names, all events, they rise in consciousness like waves upon the sea. You call them good or bad, success or failure, birth or death. But to the ocean, every wave is water, nothing more. When you forget that, you drown in the waves. When you remember, you dance upon them. Janaka closed his eyes. The words were not merely teachings, they were dissolving his boundaries, melting his sense of separation. He said softly, Then this world, this kingdom, this body, all of it is consciousness itself. Ashtavakra nodded. Yes, my king, there is nothing outside consciousness. You are not in the world is in you. Freedom of understanding. For a while, both sat in silence. Janaka's breath slowed. His mind felt vast and open like the sky at dawn. He said, O sage, if all this is illusion, what remains real? Ashtavakra's voice was steady and serene. What remains is you, the silent awareness that witnesses the illusion. That awareness has no beginning and no end. It is not born, it does not die. It simply is. When the illusion fades, it remains untouched. Like the screen after the movie ends, Janaka smiled. Then the play continues, but I no longer take it so seriously. The sage laughed softly. Yes, that is wisdom, to live fully, yet freely. To play your part with love, but never forget it is a play. Reflection. That night, Janaka walked through the palace. The same lamps burned, the same guards stood watch, the same stars shimmered above. Yet everything looked different, softer, lighter, unreal yet beautiful. He saw the world as a dream within a dream, and in that seeing, his heart became utterly still. Nothing had changed, except his understanding. And that understanding made all the difference. Verse to remember, the world is like a dream, a mirage, a reflection. It appears, yet has no true substance. Know yourself as the formless witness, and the illusion will lose its hold. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 4, Closing thought. The illusion of the world does not mean the world must be denied. It means it must be seen clearly, as a passing vision in the vast field of awareness. When you know this, you no longer fear loss or seek gain. You live lightly, love freely, act wisely, and rest deeply. For you know that everything, including you, is but the dance of the infinite self, and in that knowing, illusion becomes wonder. And life becomes peace. Chapter 5. The end of suffering days passed quietly in the kingdom of Mithila. The once restless king had become gentler, his words slower, his eyes deeper. Yet one morning, as he sat before sage Ashtavakra, his face showed a trace of confusion. He said, "O wise one, I understand that I am the self, eternal, pure, untouched. I understand that the world is illusion. And yet pain still visits me. A word can still hurt, a loss can still wound, a memory can still make me ache. Why, if I know the truth, does suffering not end?" Ashtavakra looked at him with infinite compassion. He said, "O king, knowing truth in the mind is not enough. It must sink into your being. The shadow of ignorance lingers until the light of direct seeing burns completely. Come, let us look closely at what suffering truly is. What is suffering?" The sage said. "Suffering is not in the world. It is not in events or in others. It is in the identification, in the idea that this should not be happening to me. When you forget who you are, when you believe yourself to be this small, fragile body and its endless desires, suffering begins. When you remember that you are the vast, silent witness of all experience, suffering ends." Janaka listened deeply. He said, "Then suffering is not a punishment, but forgetfulness?" Ashtavakra smiled. "Yes, suffering is simply the alarm clock of the soul. It wakes you when you have fallen asleep in illusion. It calls you back to yourself." Birth of pain, Ashtavakra continued. "Look closely, my king. Every pain begins with a thought. I want this, or I don't want that. Desire and resistance, these are the twin roots of sorrow. The mind constantly pushes and pulls at life, trying to shape it according to its imagination. When the world does not obey, the mind cries out in pain, but life has never promised to obey the mind. Life simply flows, as it always has." Janaka was silent. The truth struck him like sunlight breaking through mist. He realized how much of his pain had been born from resistance, from wanting life to be different than it was. The acceptance of what is, the sage said softly. "Freedom is not found in changing the world, but in accepting it. Acceptance does not mean weakness or resignation, it means clarity. When you stop fighting what is, the mind rests, and peace naturally arises. A wise man once said, 'Whatever comes, let it come. Whatever goes, let it go.' What remains is peace." Janaka asked, "But how can I remain peaceful when the world around me is full of injustice and sorrow?" Ashtavakra replied, "Act where you must act, speak where you must speak. But act without being bound by the results. Let your actions flow from awareness, not from fear or anger. Compassion does not require agitation. True compassion flows from stillness." Fire and the ash. The sage then told a simple story. When fire burns wood, smoke rises for a while. Then only ash remains, and finally, even the ash is scattered by the wind. The fire does not grieve for the smoke. It simply fulfills its nature, to burn and to purify. In the same way, suffering is the smoke of ignorance. When knowledge burns bright, pain rises for a while, memories, emotions, old patterns, but in time they fade. Then what remains is the pure space of awareness, clear, vast, and unshakable. Janaka nodded slowly. "So suffering is not my enemy, it is my teacher," smiled. "Yes, my king, pain is the hand that points you home. It shows you where you are still attached, where you are still asleep." Observer and the observed. The sage continued. "When you feel sorrow, do not say, 'I am sad.' Say instead, 'Sadness is passing through me.' Watch it as you would watch a passing cloud. Do not identify with it. The moment you observe without judgment, you are free. The sadness may stay for a while, but you, the witness, remain untouched. And when it fades, you will see that you were never bound, even for a moment." Janaka listened with closed eyes. He could feel the difference. The shift from being in the emotion to simply watching it. And that shift itself was peace, the end of the struggle. Ashtavakra said, "O king, the end of suffering does not come from adding something to yourself. It comes from letting go of what is false, the I that wants control, that fears loss, that measures everything by pleasure and pain. When that I is seen for what it is, a mere thought, a wave on the ocean, it dissolves. And what remains is the ocean itself, boundless, peaceful, free. Janaka bowed his head and said quietly, "O Master, I see now nothing binds me except my own belief." The sage replied, "Yes, the chains were never real. They existed only in thought. Once you see this, the struggle ends on its own. You need not conquer suffering, only understand it." Reflection: that evening, as Janaka walked through the palace courtyard, a servant accidentally dropped a golden bowl. The loud clang echoed through the hall. For a moment, everyone froze, expecting anger. But Janaka only smiled. He looked at the servant and said gently, "All things rise, all things fall, it is well." That simple moment, he realized what true freedom felt like. To live in the world, yet untouched by it. To act, yet never be bound by the act. To feel, yet remain still within. Suffering had not been destroyed. It had dissolved in understanding. Verse 2 belongs to the mind, not to the self. When you stop clinging, sorrow ends. When you rest as awareness, peace is natural. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 5, closing thought: the end of suffering is not a miracle, it is a recognition. It happens the moment you see that what hurts is not life, but your idea of how life should be. When you stop demanding, judging, and resisting, you begin to flow with what is. And in that flowing, the river becomes silent. Not because it has stopped, but because it has found its course. That silence, effortless, natural, unbroken, is the end of suffering. It is the beginning of freedom. Chapter 6. The wise person. The morning sun fell softly upon the marble floor of the court. Sage Ashtavakra sat in silence, his presence itself a teaching. King Janaka approached with folded hands and eyes that shone with gratitude. He said, "O Master, the storms within me have quieted. I feel peace where there was once restlessness, lightness where there was burden. But tell me, how does one who is truly wise live in this world? How does he walk, speak, or act after awakening?" Ashtavakra looked at him and said, "O king, the wise man lives as one who has awakened from a dream. The world still appears, but he knows it as appearance. He moves through it, untouched." Way of the wise. Ashtavakra continued, "The wise man has no pride in knowledge, no shame in ignorance. He does not compare himself with others. He has seen that all are but waves in the same ocean. He does not seek praise, nor does he fear blame. Like the wind moving through the forest, he passes silently, leaving freshness behind. His joy is not in things, but in being. His peace is not in possessions, but in presence." Janaka listened deeply. "And what of his desires, O sage?" The sage smiled. "Desires are like leaves that fall when the season ends. The wise man does not force them away, they simply drop. He has tasted something far sweeter than desire, the joy of stillness. Beyond condition," Ashtavakra said. "The wise person is content, not because he has everything, but because he needs nothing. He has found that happiness does not come from the world, but shines from within. When the mind is quiet, he may eat simple food or royal meals. His peace does not change. He may dwell in a hut or a palace. His heart remains the same. He is happy not for something, but without reason." Janaka asked, "O Master, can such peace exist amidst the noise of life?" Ashtavakra replied, "Yes, my king, the wise man's peace is not fragile. It is not the peace of silence around him, but the silence within him. Even in the marketplace, he remains inwardly still, as the deep ocean remains unmoved though waves dance above." Wise and the fool. The sage continued, "The fool lives as if the shadow were real and the substance a dream. He clings, he resists, he judges, he fears. His mind is like a storm, tossing him from one thought to another. The wise man is like the clear sky. Clouds of thought may pass, but they do not disturb his space. He does not fight the world, he sees through it. Janaka asked, "Does the wise man not act, O sage?" Ashtavakra replied, "He acts, but without the sense of, I am the doer. Actions happen through him, not by him. He is like a flute, the divine breath flows through. And music happens on its own." In the midst of life, the sage continued, "The wise man does not withdraw from life. He fulfills his duties, loves his family, helps others. But he knows that all this is play. He does not renounce the world. He renounces the illusion of bondage. He sees the divine in all. In a beggar's eyes, in a child's laughter, in a leaf trembling in the wind, because he sees unity everywhere. He lives without conflict, without greed, without fear." Janaka felt his heart open. He said softly, "O master, such a person must be beyond happiness and sorrow." Nodded. "Yes, my king, he feels both joy and sorrow may visit him. But they are like guests in his house. He welcomes them, serves them tea, and lets them go. He does not mistake them for himself." Natural state, the sage said. "The wise live naturally, not trying to be good or bad. Goodness flows from them as fragrance from a flower. They do not plan to help, help happens. They do not seek love, love radiates. Their presence heals, their silence teaches, their eyes comfort. They live as the open sky, allowing everything, holding nothing." Janaka felt tears in his eyes, not of sorrow, but of recognition. He whispered, "Master, is such wisdom possible for me?" Ashtavakra looked at him with deep kindness. "O king, it is already within you. When the clouds of thought part, the sky does not appear, it was always there. Wisdom is not to become something new, but to remember what you already are." Reflection. That night, Janaka walked among his people, unannounced, without guards. He watched a farmer laughing with his child, a potter shaping clay, an old woman lighting a lamp before her home. Everywhere he looked, he saw the same life flowing. One rhythm, one breath, one self. He realized the wise person does not stand above life. He moves with it, like the river flowing effortlessly toward the sea. And in that seeing, Janaka's heart was light as air. Verse to remember, the wise one lives without attachment or aversion. He moves through the world as the wind moves through space, touching all, holding nothing. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 6. Closing thought. Wisdom is not a state to be reached, it is a way of seeing. The wise person has stopped arguing with life. He has stopped asking it to be different. He moves gently, speaks softly, and acts without fear. For he knows that all things are but waves in the same ocean. Such a person is free, not because he has escaped the world, but because he no longer clings to it. He lives in peace, and his peace becomes a silent blessing to the world. Chapter 7. Desire and Liberation. One quiet evening, King Janaka sat by the riverside, watching the sunset. The water glowed gold, the wind was soft, and birds were returning home. And yet within him, a small question stirred again, gentle but persistent. When he met sage Ashtavakra the next morning, he said, "O master, peace fills me, yet sometimes old desires rise like waves. They pull me toward comfort, toward pleasure, toward praise. Even though I know they are fleeting, they still whisper to me. Why do desires not end? And how can I be free from them without rejecting life?" Ashtavakra smiled, the kind of smile that carries both wisdom and love. He said, "O king, desires are not your enemies, they are only movements in the mind. Temporary winds passing through the open sky of your being. Do not fight them, simply see them clearly, and they will lose their power." Nature of desire. Ashtavakra continued. Desire begins with a thought, "I lack something." It is born from the illusion of incompleteness. The mind imagines that happiness lies somewhere else. In a thing, in a person, in a moment yet to come, but the very act of seeking creates separation. You start running, and in running you forget your stillness. Desire promises fulfillment, but its hunger never ends. Like a mirage in the desert, it keeps moving further away the more you chase it. Janaka said softly, "Yes, master, I have seen this. Every joy I've gained fades so quickly," nodded. The world cannot give you lasting happiness because it was never meant to. It is a mirror, not a treasure. Its beauty reflects your own joy, but the source is within. Trap of possession, the sage continued. When you cling to anything, wealth, status, relationships, even spiritual achievement, you create fear of loss. And where there is fear, there can be no freedom. Possession is not in owning something, it is in thinking it defines you. The wise enjoy all things, yet depend on none. They live in the palace as lightly as in a hut, because they know nothing is truly theirs and nothing is missing. Janaka looked around his grand hall, jeweled pillars, golden lamps, silken banners. And for the first time, he felt no pride, no attachment. He said quietly, "I have ruled a kingdom, but it has also ruled me. Now I see I was not holding the world was holding me." And effort, Ashtavakra said, "O king, desire and effort are born together. The mind says, I must achieve, I must become. But what can the self become? It already is everything. All striving begins from the false belief of lack. When that belief ends, all effort becomes play. Then action flows naturally, effortless, spontaneous, joyful. This is the difference between the seeker and the wise. The seeker struggles to become free. The wise man rests in freedom and life unfolds through him." Janaka closed his eyes. The words were not only heard, they were felt. He saw how even his spiritual seeking had been a subtle form of desire. A desire to reach, to attain, to possess peace, and in that recognition, something relaxed inside him. A soft surrender, like a flower opening at dawn, renunciation through understanding. Janaka asked, "O master, must one then renounce everything to be free?" Ashtavakra smiled. Renunciation is not about leaving things behind, it is about leaving attachment behind. A man may live in a forest and still be bound by thought. Another may live in a palace and yet be free. Freedom is not in where you live, it is in how you live. When you see that nothing belongs to you, you live fully but lightly, like the wind passing through trees. Janaka said, "Then renunciation is not loss, it is release." The sage nodded. "Yes, you lose nothing real by letting go. What you lose are the chains that never existed." Taste of liberation, Ashtavakra continued. When the last desire fades, even subtly, when you no longer chase anything, not power, not pleasure, not enlightenment, a great peace dawns. It is not dullness, it is aliveness without craving. It is like the space between two breaths. Still, complete, eternal. This is liberation, not in another world, but here, now, in the midst of life. Liberation is not something you get. It is what remains when the seeker disappears. Reflection. That evening, Janaka walked through his palace gardens again. The same fragrances floated in the air, the same moonlight danced on the leaves. Yet his heart was quiet, neither chasing nor rejecting anything. He looked at a blooming lotus and said softly to himself, "The flower does not try to open, it opens when it must." So too the soul unfolds, not by force, but by grace. He understood now that desire had been a teacher, showing him what he was not. And in that understanding, desire had completed its purpose. Verse to remember, desire is the chain that binds the heart. Freedom is the seeing that nothing is missing. In the absence of wanting, peace arises naturally. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 7, closing thought. Desire is not the enemy, ignorance is. The moment you see clearly that no object, no person, no future moment can complete you, the chase ends on its own, then life becomes simple, effortless, and luminous. You no longer live for happiness. You live as happiness, and that, the sages say, is true liberation. Freedom not from the world, but from the endless wanting that clouds it. In that silence, you discover the joy that was never lost. The joy of simply being. Chapter 8. Ego and Identity. The morning air was cool, fragrant with sandalwood. King Janaka entered the sage's chamber quietly and sat before him. He bowed and said, "O master, I have understood that desire binds me. But I see another force, subtle and strong, that continues to hold me, this sense of I. Even when I act selflessly, somewhere within, the I whispers, I am doing good, or I am becoming wise. Tell me, O sage, what is this I, and how can I be free from it?" Ashtavakra looked at him with calm delight and said, "O king, what you call I is not your true self. It is a shadow, a thought pretending to be the light. It was born with the first thought of separation. When the infinite began to imagine, I am this and I am not that, the birth of the ego, the sage continued. In truth, there is no individual self. There is only consciousness, one and whole. But when this pure awareness identifies with body and mind, it becomes the ego, a drop imagining itself separate from the ocean. From this illusion arise all others. I am rich, I am poor, I am happy, I am sad. These are masks worn by the same actor, consciousness itself. Janaka listened quietly. He felt something stir within. A sense that this illusion had ruled him all his life. The illusion of ownership. Ashtavakra said. The ego says, "This is mine." But what can truly belong to you, O king? You came into this world empty-handed. And you will leave the same way. The body is borrowed from earth, the breath from air, the mind from memory, the world from consciousness. You are the witness of them all. Not their owner, not their prisoner. Janaka said softly, "Then who am I, if not the I that thinks, feels, and acts?" The sage smiled. You are the silent awareness in which even the thought, I, appears and disappears. You are before the thought, during the thought, and after it. The ego is a ripple, you are the ocean. Mask and the actor. Ashtavakra continued. O king, imagine an actor who wears many masks. A warrior in one play, a beggar in another, a sage in the next. When the play ends, he removes them all and smiles. So it is with you. You have worn countless masks, son, father, king, seeker. But beneath them all, you are the same awareness, unchanged and free. The tragedy of life is not that you wear masks, but that you forget they are masks. Janaka nodded slowly. He had spent his whole life polishing his crown, forgetting the one who wore it. The ego, disguised, the sage said. The ego is clever. When it cannot rule through pride, it rules through humility. It says, I am a great man, and if that fails, it says, I am nothing. But whether it shouts or whispers, it is the same voice. The voice of separation. The wise do not destroy the ego, they see through it. They watch it arise and dissolve like a shadow moving across light. They no longer say, I am this or I am that. They rest as pure being, nameless, formless, free. Janaka said, but if I lose this I, will I not disappear? Ashtavakra replied. The false I will disappear, yes. But what remains is your true self, infinite, peaceful, untouched. When the wave falls back into the sea, does the sea lose anything? No, it becomes whole again. Freedom of no identity, the sage continued. When identity fades, fear ends. For what can die, what can be insulted, what can be lost? If there is no separate I, the wise live without center or boundary. They act but do not claim the action. They love but do not possess. They speak but know that silence is their source. Their joy is not personal, it belongs to all. Janaka closed his eyes. He could feel that small I inside him. The one that had wanted to rule, to control, to achieve. He watched it rise and fall. And for a moment, there was only space, silent, vast, and alive. The mirror without dust, Ashtavakra said. When the ego dissolves, the self shines like a mirror without dust. It reflects the whole world perfectly, but holds nothing. You will still see, still act, still live. But there will be no you doing it. Life will flow through you like music through a flute. Then everything becomes sacred. Every breath, every moment, every being. Janaka whispered, "O Master, how simple this truth is, and how long I have overlooked it." Sage smiled gently. "Truth is always simple, my king. Only the ego loves complication." Reflection. That night, Janaka looked at his reflection in a bowl of water. He realized how many names and faces he had carried. King, husband, scholar, devotee. And yet none of them were him. He touched the water, and the reflection rippled. He understood. The image was never the man. And the man was never apart from the water. Verse to remember: you are not the doer, not the thinker, not the body or the name. You are the clear space in which all arises and subsides. Let the false I dissolve, and know yourself as freedom itself. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 8. Closing thought. The ego is a story, a whisper that says, "I am separate." It feeds on comparison, grows on memory, and lives in fear. When you see that it is only a story, not the storyteller, it begins to fade. You do not have to kill it or fight it. You only need to stop believing in it. Then life continues as before. But you are no longer a character trapped in the story. You are the silent awareness in which the story unfolds. That is the death of the ego and the birth of true freedom. Chapter 9. Witness consciousness. The early dawn light streamed into the hall where King Janaka sat, still and quiet. The soft hum of birds filled the air. The fragrance of incense drifted through the open doors. It was a morning without hurry, the kind that invites silence to speak. Sage Ashtavakra entered, his steps soundless as wind over grass. Janaka bowed and said, "O Master, I have begun to see that the ego is only a shadow, not the truth. But I wish to remain free, even as the world moves around me. Tell me, how can I live as awareness itself, untouched by the play of thought and emotion?" The sage smiled, his eyes shining with peace. He said, "O King, the secret is to live as the witness, the silent watcher behind every movement of life. You are not what you observe, you are the one who observes." Seeing without owning. Ashtavakra continued, "When a thought arises, I am happy, I am sad, I am afraid. Do not become the thought, simply watch it. It is like seeing clouds drift across the sky. You are the sky, open, spacious, clear. The clouds may come and go, but they cannot stain the sky." Janaka listened carefully. He said, "But Master, sometimes the clouds are so heavy, anger, fear, desire. They fill my mind completely. In those moments, how can I remember I am the sky?" Ashtavakra replied, "O King, even when clouds cover the sky does not disappear. So too, even when emotions are strong, awareness remains untouched beneath them. Do not fight the clouds, simply allow them to pass. Patience is the power of the witness." Art of watching. The sage said, "Begin by observing small things. Your breath as it moves in and out. Your thoughts as they arise and fade. Your body as it walks, sits, eats, speaks. See that all of it happens on its own. The body breathes, the mind thinks, the heart beats. You are not doing these things, they are being done. Your only work is to notice." Janaka asked, "If I am only the watcher, does that not make me detached from life, uncaring, cold?" Ashtavakra smiled. "No, my king, the witness is not cold, it is compassionate. When you no longer cling to things or resist them, you see them as they truly are. From that seeing, love arises naturally. It is not the love that grasps, it is the love that allows." The mirror metaphor. Ashtavakra continued, "Awareness is like a mirror. It reflects everything that appears before it, joy or sorrow, virtue or vice. But it holds nothing. the mirror does not become dirty when it reflects dirt. Nor does it become fragrant when it reflects flowers. It simply remains clear. In the same way, the witness within you never changes. All experiences pass through it, but none touch it. Janaka sat quietly for a long moment. He felt his mind watching itself, thoughts rising, fading like ripples in a pond. And suddenly he realized he was not the ripples nor the pond. He was the stillness in which both appeared. The end of effort, the sage said softly. When you rest as the witness, life becomes effortless. You no longer push or pull against the flow. You do not try to be peaceful, you simply stop disturbing your own peace. Awareness is not something to achieve. It is what you already are. You do not become the witness, you remember that you have never been anything else. Janaka whispered, yes, I can feel that even now. All actions happen, words, breath, thought. But there is something watching, silent, unmoving. It is not me as a person, it is me as presence, nodded. That is the self, ever-present, timeless and free. It is not found by the mind, it is found when the mind stops searching. Witnessing in daily life, the sage continued. O king, this is not only for meditation. When you walk, know that walking is happening. When you eat, know that eating is happening. When you speak, know that speaking is happening. In every action, remember, you are the silent background, not the movement. When you live this way, the world becomes your meditation. Janaka asked, and what happens when I forget, when I fall back into the noise of the world? Ashtavakra smiled. Then simply notice that forgetting has happened. Even forgetting, when observed, becomes a doorway to awareness. The witness is never lost, only unnoticed. Ocean and the wave, Ashtavakra said. Imagine the ocean, waves rise, dance and fall. If each wave says, I am separate, it suffers. But when it sees, I am water, all fear ends. You are the ocean, not the wave. When you identify with the wave, you tremble. When you rest as the ocean, you are vast and still. Even while waves continue to dance, Janaka closed his eyes and felt the truth of it. He could feel thoughts rising and falling. But beneath them, an unchanging silence remained. And in that silence, he felt vast, boundless as the sea. Reflection. That night, Janaka sat alone on the palace terrace, looking at the stars. He watched the sky, endless and unmoving, holding the countless lights without effort. He realized that his own consciousness was the same. A boundless space in which all things appeared and disappeared. The stars would fade with dawn, but the sky would remain. So too, thoughts and emotions would come and go. But awareness would always be there, shining, steady, free, and in that realization, a deep peace settled in his heart. A peace not of doing, but of being. Verse to remember, you are the witness of all things. Seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, thinking, feeling. These come and go, but you remain. Know yourself as this awareness and be free. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 9. Closing thought. Witnessing is not escape, it is awakening. It is the art of living fully, without being consumed by what you experience. When you live as the witness, joy and sorrow lose their chains. The world continues, but it can no longer disturb your center. You become the still lake that reflects everything clearly, yet remains undisturbed beneath its surface. This is freedom. Not to withdraw from life, but to see life clearly. And in that seeing, to rest in unbroken peace. Chapter 10. Freedom and responsibility. The morning sun rose quietly over the palace walls. Its golden rays touched the marble pillars, the fountains, the gardens. Everything bathed in stillness. King Janaka walked slowly to meet sage Ashtavakra. There was a calmness in his eyes, yet a question still lived in his heart. He bowed and said, O Master, I have seen that I am the witness, free, untouched, eternal. Yet I am still a king, a husband, a ruler of people. Tell me, how does one who knows freedom live in the world. If I am beyond all, should I abandon my duties? Or is there a way to live freely and still act with responsibility? Ashtavakra smiled softly. O king, he said, freedom and responsibility are not opposites. They are two sides of the same truth. The truly free one is the most responsible, because he acts not from ego, but from clarity and compassion. Nature of true freedom, the sage continued. Most people think freedom means doing whatever they wish. But that is not freedom, that is slavery to desire. True freedom is inner independence. To act without being ruled by craving or fear. It is the freedom from compulsion, not freedom for indulgence. The wise man may appear to live like others. He eats, speaks, walks, rules, teaches. But within him there is no bondage. For he knows he is not the doer. Janaka listened carefully. Then freedom is not leaving the world, but living in it without attachment. Ashtavakra nodded. Yes, freedom does not come from running away from life, but from seeing life clearly. When you realize that the whole world is a passing play, you can play your part perfectly, because you no longer mistake it for reality. Acting without attachment, the sage said. The wise act not because they must, but because action flows through them naturally. They have no need to prove or possess. They are like a flute. The divine breath moves through them, and music happens effortlessly. Actions done from awareness are pure. They leave no burden behind. But actions done from ego, I must achieve, I must control, I must be praised. Those actions bind the mind. Janaka asked, then how can one act without the sense of I am doing? Ashtavakra replied, by remembering that everything happens in consciousness. The rising of thoughts, the movement of hands, the beating of the heart, the flow of breaths. You are the witness of it all. When this understanding becomes deep, action continues, but the actor disappears, does not reject duty. Ashtavakra continued. O king, you need not abandon your throne to be free. Rule your people with justice, love, and compassion. But without claiming ownership, the ignorant man says, I rule the kingdom. The wise man says, the kingdom is ruled through me. Do you see the difference? The first binds himself with pride and fear. The second remains free, for he knows he is only an instrument of the divine will. Janaka bowed his head. Yes, master, I see. When I was driven by desire, ruling was a burden. Now I see it as a service, a flow of life through me, smiled. That is the fragrance of true freedom. When action becomes worship, and responsibility becomes love, and compassion, the sage said. The wise do not act for reward. They act from compassion, not the compassion of pity, but the compassion of understanding. They see all beings as oneself. When the wise help others, they are only helping themselves. When they forgive, they free their own heart. When they serve, they see the divine in every face. Janaka asked, does the wise man ever say no? Ashtavakra replied, yes, my king. Compassion is not weakness, it is clarity. A wise man may say no when it is right to do so, but his heart remains free from anger. His refusal is as gentle as his acceptance. His strength is born from peace, balance of stillness and action. Ashtavakra said, freedom is stillness inside, not inactivity outside. A tree stands still, yet gives shade and fruit. The sun does nothing, yet nourishes all life. So too, the wise live in stillness. And from that stillness, their actions arise naturally and rightly. Do not confuse motion with meaning. Many move restlessly, yet achieve nothing. The wise act rarely, but each act carries power. For it flows from silence. Janaka felt a wave of understanding. He realized that peace and purpose were not separate. They were one, like the flame and its light, freedom and responsibility in daily life. The sage continued. O king, the truly free person does not neglect the world. He honors it as the play of the self. He speaks truthfully, loves deeply, and works with care. But his heart remains unbound. He is like a lotus growing in the water, rooted in the world, yet untouched by it. Such a one fulfills his responsibilities joyfully. For he knows they are not chains, but opportunities to express love and wisdom, Janaka said softly. Then the world itself becomes the field of liberation, smiled. Yes, my king. The world is not against your freedom, it is the training ground for it. Each challenge shows where you still cling. Each duty reveals where you still resist. Meet them with awareness, and they will become steps toward liberation. Reflection. That evening, Janaka stood on his balcony, looking over Mithila. He saw his people working, laughing, living. The city was alive with sound and movement. Yet within him, there was only stillness. He realized that freedom was not escape. It was participation without bondage. He could love, serve, rule, decide, and yet remain untouched. Like the sky that holds the clouds, but is never burdened by them. And in that moment, he smiled. For he understood that enlightenment did not take him away from life. It brought him home to it. Verse to remember, the free one acts without claiming. He serves without pride, rules without fear, loves without possession. In freedom, duty becomes joy, and action becomes peace. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 10, closing thought. Freedom is not the end of responsibility, it is its perfection. When the ego falls away, duty becomes devotion. And work becomes worship. You live not as a doer, but as an instrument of the divine rhythm that moves all things. Such freedom carries no arrogance, no avoidance, no escape. It is a quiet harmony, the ability to act without being bound, to give without losing, to serve without pride. That is the highest balance. The stillness of a liberated heart, moving gracefully through the dance of life. Chapter 11, the play of life. The moonlight spread gently over Mithila that night. The palace lamps had dimmed, and the sound of distant flutes carried through the still air. King Janaka sat by his window, gazing at the stars. The peace within him was deep, yet alive. When morning came, he went again to the sage. Bowing, he said, O Master, you have taught me freedom and detachment, the end of desire and the peace of awareness. Yet I wish to ask one last question about this world I live in. If all is illusion, and I am the witness, then why does the world still appear so beautiful, so full of color, sound, and wonder? Why does the heart still feel moved by its play? Ashtavakra smiled with a light that seemed to rise from eternity itself. He said, O king, because that is exactly what it is, a play. The whole universe is the divine dance of consciousness. When you awaken, you do not lose the world. You simply see it for what it is. A magnificent, ever-changing play upon the screen of the self. Divine game. The sage continued. In ignorance, man suffers because he believes the play to be real. In wisdom, he rejoices because he sees it as a game. The wise laugh and cry with the world. But their laughter and tears are light. Like ripples on the surface of a calm lake, they know that no event, no success, no failure can touch the depth of their being. They watch all of life's movements, as one watches a drama, fully present yet never bound. Janaka listened with a soft smile. He said, then life itself is not to be escaped, but enjoyed with awareness. Ashtavakra nodded. Yes, to reject the world is as much ignorance as to be lost in it. The awakened one does neither. He participates in the play, knowing it is a play. River of experience. Ashtavakra said, O king, experiences come like a flowing river. Birth and death, joy and pain, gain and loss. The ignorant man tries to dam the river. He wants to keep pleasure and block pain. And so he suffers. For the river will always flow its own way. The wise one stands on the bank and watches the river pass. He neither clings nor resists. He lets it flow. And in that allowing, he finds peace. Janaka asked, but does not this detachment make life dull and colorless? Ashtavakra laughed softly. No, my king, quite the opposite. When you stop clinging, you begin to truly see. A flower is more beautiful when you do not wish to own it. A song is more divine when you simply listen. Love is purer when it does not demand, when the mind stops interfering. The heart discovers wonder again. Cosmic dance the sage continued. Life is the dance of Shiva, the eternal play of consciousness with itself. Forms arise, dissolve, and arise again. The play has no purpose. Just as music has no goal but the joy of its melody, the divine creates, sustains, and dissolves. Not out of need, but out of playfulness. And you, O king, are not separate from that dance. You are the dancer and the dance itself. Janaka's eyes grew soft. He said, then this life, this body, this kingdom. They too are movements of that same dance. Yes, said Ashtavakra. The one plays as many. As the bird that sings, the wind that blows, the king who rules, the sage who speaks. All are waves of one ocean, appearing separate, yet never apart. Smile of the awakened, Ashtavakra said. The sign of an awakened one is not withdrawal, but playfulness. He may laugh when others weep, and weep when others laugh. Not because he is careless, but because he is free. He lives lightly. He does not demand that life obey him, nor does he fear what comes. To him, joy and sorrow are scenes in the same divine theater. Janaka asked, does such a person still feel emotion, O sage? The sage replied, yes, but the emotion is transparent. It passes through without leaving a stain. He feels deeply, but he does not drown. His heart is open like the sky. Everything can pass through it, but nothing can stay. World as reflection, Ashtavakra continued. O king, think of the world as a reflection in a clear lake. The sky, the trees, the clouds all appear in it. But the water remains untouched, so it is with consciousness. All things appear within it, but it remains pure and still. The fool jumps into the reflection, trying to grasp what he sees. The wise admire its beauty, but their feet remain on the shore. Janaka laughed quietly. He said, how many lifetimes have I spent diving into the reflection? Now I see it was never outside me. Living the play, Ashtavakra said. O king, now live this understanding. Rule your kingdom, love your family, care for your people. But do it all as part of the play. When you rise in the morning, see the sun as divine light awakening you. When you speak, see the words as life expressing itself through you. When you act, see action as the rhythm of the dance. In this way, every moment becomes sacred. Life itself becomes worship. Janaka bowed deeply. He said, O master, what you call play, the world calls struggle. But I now see the struggle ends when the player awakens. Smiled. Yes, my king. The game does not end, but the suffering of the player does. Reflection that night, King Janaka stood under the open sky. The stars sparkled like jewels upon a dark sea. He watched them, feeling neither small nor great. Just one with everything. He understood that nothing in the world was separate. Not the stars, not the earth, not even himself. All were waves of one vast consciousness, playing endlessly, joyfully, without beginning or end. He smiled quietly to himself and whispered, this is life, the divine play. and I am not apart from it. Verse to remember, the world is the play of the self, radiant, endless, and free. To see it as play is wisdom. To dance in it with joy is liberation. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 11, closing thought. When you see the world as divine play, you stop asking life to be perfect. You simply join the dance, you act without fear, love without clinging, and live without burden. The enlightened one does not escape the world. He becomes its joyful participant. He laughs with the river, moves with the wind, and sees the same self in all beings. To live this way is to live awake. Not in struggle, but in wonder. Not in control, but in harmony. This is the wisdom of Ashtavakra. To see the universe as the eternal dance of the divine, and yourself as both the dancer and the dance. Chapter 12. The enlightened vision. The sun was setting over Mithila. The sky was painted with shades of gold and crimson, and the air carried a quiet grace. King Janaka and sage Ashtavakra sat together on the terrace, looking out at the fading light. Neither spoke for a long while. There was no need. Silence itself was teaching now. Finally, Janaka said softly, "O Master, I have seen the world as a divine play. I have known freedom, peace, and stillness. But tell me, how does the awakened one see existence itself? What remains when all illusions fade? What is the vision of one who has truly known?" Ashtavakra smiled, not to answer, but as if to bless the question itself. He said, "O King, when the mind becomes silent and the self is realized, a new vision dawns, not of two, but of one. This is the enlightened vision. To see the same self in everything, and everything in the self." Vision of oneness. Ashtavakra continued. The ignorant see separation everywhere. Me and you, gain and loss, life and death, good and bad. But the awakened one sees only unity. To him, the river and the rain, the mountain and the dust, the king and the beggar, all are one essence. He sees no division between spirit and matter, between God and the world. All are ripples of the same ocean of consciousness. Janaka listened, his eyes moist. He said, "O Master, when I look around now, I no longer see a kingdom. I see life itself, moving in countless forms." Is that the vision of the wise? Ashtavakra nodded gently. Yes, my king. When the veil of mine and yours falls, what remains is only this. Pure being, pure awareness, pure love, seeing beyond seeing. The sage continued. The enlightened vision is not through the eyes. It is through the heart. The eyes see forms, the heart knows essence. A wise one does not look at a person and see a name or role. He sees the self shining quietly within. He looks at a stone, and the same stillness looks back at him. He hears the rustle of leaves, and it feels like the sound of his own breath. For him, there is no inside or outside. All is within the one. Janaka asked, "O sage, is this vision constant? Or does it come and go like a mood?" Ashtavakra replied, "When realization is complete, the vision never leaves. The forms may change, but the awareness behind them never fades. The wise live in the same world as others, but they do not see the same world. Light in all things," Ashtavakra said. The world that once seemed ordinary now glows with quiet divinity. The enlightened see light in every face, truth in every sound, God in every grain of dust. Nothing is profane, nothing is apart. They see that every being is but the self looking back at itself. Every eye a mirror, every heart a flame. Janaka bowed his head. He said, "Then to harm another would be to harm oneself." Sage smiled. "Yes, my king. Compassion becomes natural when oneness is seen. It is not a virtue to be practiced. It is the fragrance of awakening." Birth and death, the sage continued. The ignorant live in fear of death. They think they are the body, and the body must end, but the awakened see differently. They know, I was never born, so how can I die? They understand that birth and death belong to forms, not to the formless awareness that they truly are. For them, death is but the changing of a costume in the great play. They smile at it. As one smiles when the curtain falls after a beautiful drama, Janaka whispered, "O Master, the fear that once followed me like a shadow is gone. It was never death that frightened me. It was my forgetfulness." Ashtavakra's eyes glowed with approval. "You have seen well, my king. That is the end of ignorance. Not in knowing more, but in remembering what you are." Still heart, Ashtavakra said. In the enlightened vision, the heart becomes still, but not lifeless. It beats in rhythm with the universe. The wise act, but their actions spring from love, not from need. They move, yet within they are unmoving. They speak, yet within they are silent. They live, yet within they have transcended life and death. Janaka said, "It is a strange paradox. To live fully, yet be beyond living," smiled. "Yes, when you are no longer trying to hold on to life, you finally live it. When you are no longer afraid to die, you are truly alive." Equal vision, the sage said. The enlightened see all things with equal vision. A dog and a scholar, a saint and a sinner, a pebble and a pearl. They do not judge, for they know that each is a wave upon the same sea. They do not reject the world's diversity. They celebrate it. They see unity through difference, not by denying it. Janaka said, "Then enlightenment does not destroy individuality." Ashtavakra replied, "No, my king. It frees it from false identity. The wave remains a wave, but it knows it is water. It can now dance without fear." Reflection. That night, King Janaka stood upon his terrace once more. The moon hung high, and the city below shimmered with life. People laughing, lamps glowing, children playing. He felt no urge to withdraw, no need to control. Everything was perfect as it was. He looked at the stars and whispered to himself, "All this, the joy, the sorrow, the noise, the silence, is one great song. And I am not the listener, I am the song itself." That moment, his mind vanished into stillness. There was no king, no sage, no world. Only awareness, infinite and shining, verse to remember. He who sees the one in all and all in the one is free forever. For him, the world is not illusion. It is the living face of the self. Ashtavakra Gita, Chapter 12, closing thought. The enlightened vision is not the end of the world. It is the end of ignorance. You no longer see fragments, you see wholeness. You no longer seek meaning, everything shines with meaning when the veil of separation lifts. You see God in every face, truth in every moment, and eternity in every breath. That is the final flowering of wisdom. When love, peace, and understanding become one seamless light, in that vision, life and liberation are not two. You have not escaped the world. You have embraced it completely and found only the self everywhere. Conclusion. The eternal silence within the dialogue between King Janaka and sage Ashtavakra is not merely an ancient conversation. It is the timeless dialogue between the restless mind and the silent self that lives within each of us. Across these chapters, we have walked with Janaka through his own awakening. From confusion to clarity, from seeking to stillness, from identity to infinity. And in truth, his journey is ours. The journey revisited in the beginning, Janaka was like many of us, successful, intelligent, and yet inwardly unsatisfied. His heart longed for peace that no possession or achievement could offer. He turned toward the sage not to learn how to gain more, but to understand why all gain felt hollow. Ashtavakra did not give him rituals or commandments. He offered insight. That the true self is not the body or the mind, not our emotions or our stories, but the silent awareness behind them all. From that seed of understanding, everything unfolded. He discovered that detachment is not rejection, but clarity. That suffering is not punishment, but forgetfulness. That desire binds only until we see through its illusion of incompleteness. That the ego is not our enemy, but a shadow that fades when light is seen. That witnessing life brings peace because we no longer fight what simply is. And finally, that freedom is not escape from duty, but the graceful living of it. Knowing it is all part of the divine play, Janaka's realization was not an end, but a beginning. The beginning of living awake. The essence of wisdom. Ashtavakra's teaching is radical in its simplicity. He does not tell us to renounce the world. He asks us to renounce the illusion of bondage. He does not say stop acting. He says act without clinging. He does not lead us to another heaven. He points us to the peace already within. His wisdom can be summed up in a few eternal truths. You are not what changes. You are the changeless awareness in which all things rise and fall. Suffering begins when you forget this. It ends when you remember. The world is not to be feared or escaped, but to be seen clearly as a play of consciousness. The wise do not withdraw from life. They dance through it with lightness, compassion, and joy. Liberation is not in the future. It is now in the simple recognition of your true nature. When you know this, you become like the sky, untouched by clouds, vast and ever-present. Living the teaching to understand Ashtavakra is not to collect ideas, but to live with awareness in every moment. When anger arises, watch it. When desire pulls, watch it. When sorrow comes, watch it. When joy blooms, watch it too. Do not claim or reject any of it. Just be the space in which all experiences appear. This is meditation, not something done in a cave, but in the middle of living, loving, and working, in that still seeing. Life loses its heaviness and becomes what it was meant to be. A flow, a dance, a song of existence, the peace that remains. Janaka once asked, what remains when everything falls away? And Ashtavakra answered through silence, because what remains cannot be spoken. It can only be known. It is the same peace you feel in stillness. The same awareness reading these words right now. It is the space in which your thoughts move. The listener behind your mind. The light in your eyes that never fades. That is the self. That is truth. That is freedom, the final understanding when realization deepens. The question, who am I, dissolves. For there is no I left to ask or answer, only presence remains. Silent, infinite, shining through every form, the river has merged with the sea. The wave has remembered it was water. The seeker has realized there was never a distance to travel, and what follows is not grandeur, but simplicity. Living each day with awareness, kindness, and calm joy. Closing words. If there is one message that the Ashtavakra Gita leaves with us, it is this: you are already free. Nothing can add to you, and nothing can take away from you. Be still and know. You are the infinite self, so live lightly. Love deeply. Act wisely. And when confusion arises, return to silence. For silence is your true home. That silence is the final chapter of every scripture, the answer to every question, and the peace beyond every search. It is you. As you have always been, dove, you are the ocean, infinite, calm, and shining. The waves of the world may rise and fall, but you remain vast, silent, and free. Ashtavakra Gita authors note afterward, this book was born not from scholarship, but from silence, from a deep personal longing to understand life beyond its noise. and to share that peace in words simple enough for anyone to feel. The Ashtavakra Gita is not a text to be studied. It is a mirror to look into. Every line in it points you back to what you already are. The stillness beneath thought, the awareness behind experience, the freedom that was never lost, while retelling these ancient teachings in plain English. My only intention was to make them accessible, not as philosophy, but as a living truth that one can live, breathe, and quietly embody each day. If these pages have helped you pause, if they have softened your mind, or reminded you even briefly of your own peace, then this work has fulfilled its purpose. The wisdom belongs to no one, not to sages, not to seekers, not to me. It flows like a river from the timeless source, and we are all waves upon it. Learning, remembering, and returning home again, may you carry this silence with you into your mornings and nights, your laughter and tears, your duties and dreams, and whenever life feels too loud, close your eyes for a moment and listen. The same stillness that guided Ashtavakra and Janaka is alive in you too. It has never left. It never will. The author